So, you've probably been scrolling across crypto Twitter and seeing all these degens making them gains. And then you see me, a beautiful man named Khaos Kris over at the Verse Crypto channel, and you somehow ended up clicking on this video. And I gotta tell you, you're probably number one a degen, or you're just an idiot, because I am a degen and I'm an idiot, and real recognizes real. So today we're going to be talking about TitanX, a project that many hex maxis do not like. A lot of them reached out to me saying, Kris, I'm in my mom's basement. I want to tell you, do not touch this project. It is a bad idea. And listen, anytime someone tells me to do something, I do the exact opposite. So in this video, we're going to talk about all things TitanX and 3 projects launching on top of TitanX. Let's get it. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Verse Crypto channel, the #1 altcoin channel in all of crypto. Before I get in this video, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and turn bell notifications on so I keep you guys up to date with the latest, greatest news and information within this space. With that being said, let's hop right in this. So, today we're going to talk about TitanX, and for some reason people do not like this project, and for whatever reason I have no idea. Maybe it's just an ego thing, but if you're going to tell me not to look into something, I'm probably going to look into it just to make you mad. That's just how I roll. Now, getting into TitanX, what is TitanX? Just a brief breakdown without going too crazy and turn this into a PhD class, because I am not smart enough to have a PhD, that's for sure. Come over here to TitanX, you see this really cool website, lots of colors, love the color green, and you got miner stake, payouts, buy and burn. Now we're going to come over here to the white paper, and I'm going to give you the very basic watered down Spark Notes breakdown of what TitanX is. TitanX is basically a protocol where you have virtual miners, you have staking, and then you have a launch pad. In the virtual mining component, this is how TitanX is created. You take Ethereum, purchase a miner, and with that miner, a portion of that ETH is going to be used to buy and burn the TitanX token. Another portion sent over to TitanX stakers, and then another portion is set aside for anyone who decides to burn TitanX. You can receive some of that Ethereum. So there's like 3 main components behind this project, and in my opinion, TitanX has never been used before. This project combines all the best features of Hex and also Zen, and basically implements it in a fair launch process so that anyone can get in on day one. There's no VC funds. It's a fair launch project and no sketchiness going on, which really attracted me to the project. Now, one of the key components about TitanX that you guys gotta understand is, in the beginning, the TitanX miners are extremely cheap and it produces the most TitanX, but over time, the amount of TitanX slowly goes down and the cost of miners goes up. When this happens, you start to see less TitanX hit the market and more Ethereum go into the buy and burn, which in theory makes TitanX go from hyperinflationary to hyper-deflationary. Well, at least that's what we think, and that's something we'll probably have to see in the rest of the bull market. Now, if I come down here to the daily update, there's a couple of charts that you guys can come and check it out, and it just basically shows you this process of how miners basically become much more expensive and produce less TitanX. Now, in my opinion, the heart and soul of TitanX is the launchpad. This project is designed so that if projects want to come into an ecosystem, they can essentially launch their project on top of TitanX by burning TitanX tokens, and you get to receive some of this ETH through the burn wallet address, which I absolutely love. Now I'm going to go through 3 projects that recently just launched on TitanX, and they're really interesting plays. Keep in mind, I'm not a financial advisor. Do not get into these projects. I'm just here just talking about crypto just like I always do, and I am a degen. I'm probably not that smart, and the hex maxis love me because I am their daddy. Now for your first TitanX Altcoin Gem. It was the first project to launch on top of TitanX, and it also utilizes the staking pool in the TitanX ecosystem to make a hyper-deflationary token. The name of that project is TitanX. So if you guys come over here to TitanX.win, it's a very similar UI to what we see with TitanX. Now, if we just come over here to the white paper and just take a quick glimpse at it, essentially TitanX is a derivative on maximum length TitanX stakes. During the TitanX launch phase, users submit TitanX to TitanX contracts. The contract mints TitanX in return. So basically, how TitanX is created is you take your TitanX, you mint DragonX, and with that DragonX you just hold in your wallet. And over time, through the initial launch phase, less and less DragonX can be minted until it gets up to 12 weeks, and after that, no DragonX can be created. Now, what happens with that TitanX that you use to mint DragonX with? That TitanX is submitted back into the TitanX protocol and is staked for Ethereum payouts that occur every 8, 28, 90, 369 days, and the list goes on. And using that Ethereum, it goes back into the protocol and it's used to buy TitanX, burn DragonX, and it creates this buy and burn cycle through TitanX straight to DragonX. Now, the reason why I think DragonX is an absolute sleeper is in the beginning, just like TitanX, there's going to be a lot of inflation. You can mint TitanX 1-to-1 in the first 2 weeks, and then there on after that, it goes down by 5%. And then when you get to week 12, for every one TitanX, you can mint 0.5 DragonX. And so in my opinion, once we get past week 12, no more DragonX can be produced. And on top of that, all the ETH that's coming from the TitanX protocol is going to be used to buy up and burn the DragonX token. So based on what I'm seeing right here, I think DragonX can go from inflationary to hyperdeflationary much quicker than TitanX. Plus, it's a leverage on TitanX staking, meaning as more Ethereum goes into TitanX staking, the increase in value of the DragonX token, which is really awesome. Now, for your second hidden Altcoin Gem, it's a project very similar to TitanX, except it has two components that are very different. And one of the main components is an investment pool that is going to be utilizing the protocol to invest in other projects outside the TitanX ecosystem. And the name of that project is Helios. So if you guys want to come over and check out Helios, it's at helios.win. It's one of the projects that actually recently just launched. And if we come over here to the overview, which is the white paper, it gives us a great breakdown of what Helios is. And so I'm just going to take a quick glimpse at the diagram. Now, if we just blow up this diagram, you have something called Helios miners, and then you have a treasury. So basically, the Helios miners is very similar to what we see with the TitanX miners. The treasury is a similar component to DragonX. The best way to think about this is TitanX plus DragonX equals Helios. Now, the one component about Helios that really caught my interest is this investment pools. And so from the treasury that generates a lot of ETH from the TitanX staking, the investment pools can be used to interact with the Aave protocol, the MakerDAO protocol, anything on Ethereum. And the idea is to go out, create investments in other projects, bring some of that value into the TitanX ecosystem, and buy and burn TitanX so that you can receive more Ethereum from the burn wallet function within the TitanX ecosystem. And so in my opinion, I really like Helios based on the fact that it takes the best parts of TitanX, DragonX, and also adds this investment pool component. And that is why Helios is your second hidden altcoin TitanX gem. And for your third and final TitanX hidden altcoin gem, this was probably one of the most expected project launches within the TitanX ecosystem. If you guys have been on Twitter, you've been checking out Jake's page, you've probably seen a phrase called when hyper. And the name of that project is Hyper, which I gave away to you guys. But ultimately, Hyper, it's one of the new projects that recently just launched on TitanX, and it's been absolutely taking Twitter by storm. Now, Hyper is a very interesting protocol and has very unique fundamentals. So if we come over here to the white paper, there's a quick breakdown of what Hyper is, but just starting off with the virtual mining. So in Hyper, you create your own coins with your own private keys through your own effort via virtual mining into existence. Hyper is built with self-custody, censorship resistance, and pure DeFi DNA at its core. So basically what Hyper is you basically take Ethereum, you can mint Hyper, and with that Ethereum, it goes back into the protocol and basically goes in, buys TitanX, and also burns Hyper. So there's a lot of moving parts. So I'm going to come down here to the Hyper ETH distribution, because this is the key component to understanding it. So you got to think of, like with Hyper, very similar to TitanX, but the one thing that's really different is this ETH distribution. So step one, when you go and you set up a miner, starts at 0.2 Ethereum per miner and then slowly increases over time so that less Hyper is produced. Now, when you put that Ethereum through the wallet address, to mint a miner, 89% of the ETH gets sent to a decentralized buy TitanX contract where it basically sits there and just buys the TitanX, and then it goes, and from that TitanX it's distributed in step 2, which we'll get to in a minute. 8% of ETH gets into the vortex, which we're going to cover in a second, and then 3% goes to the Genesis wallet address. Now from that 89%, we come down here to step 2, where 70% of the TitanX gets sent to a decentralized hyper buy and burn. And so with that hyper buy and burn, it comes down here to step 3, which we'll get into in a minute. Of that Ethereum, 10% gets stored back into the vortex. So now with that TitanX that's bought off the market, it's sent to the vortex along with that Ethereum from step 1. And then 20% of the TitanX gets bought and burned forever, which also gives you more Ethereum from the TitanX burn wallet function. Now, when we come down to step 3, from the 70% of TitanX that gets sent to the decentralized hyper buy and burn, 80% of the hypers bought with TitanX via the TitanX hyper pool, and then 20% gets distributed 50-50 amongst 2 payout cycles. And so if we come down here to the staking payout cycles, basically you can take your hyper and stake it for however long you wish, and there's a 98-day payout, and then there's a 369-day payout. So the idea of how hyper works is it's leverage play on top of TitanX, and the amount of hyper being produced is based off of how much TitanX is being produced as well. And in my opinion, there's 3 moving parts. So there's a buy TitanX contract, there's a burn contract, and then there's also the vortex. And in my opinion, the hyper vortex is the hidden component within this entire ecosystem. So how the vortex works is the TitanX in the vortex gets released every 98 days. The ETH in the vortex, 100% used to buy TitanX via wrapped ETH TitanX, and then buy and burn hyper with the TitanX is just bought, gets released every 98 days for the first time at day 196. So basically what the vortex does is it creates this snowball effect where it builds up TitanX and also it builds up Ethereum. And as this snowball effect continues to go, it actually increases the amount of TitanX being burnt off the market, and also the amount of hyper on top of the hyper staking, where it's incentivizing people to stake out their hyper to earn more hyper in return. So in my opinion, hyper is a very new protocol. It was created by Jake Sharp. A lot of people are hype behind it. And if hyper can continue to build the snowball effect and accumulate as much TitanX and Ethereum as possible through the vortex, there's a good chance that TitanX can go from hyperinflationary to hyperdeflationary very, very quickly. Well, guys, that is it for the video. Out of all 3 of these protocols, which one do you think is the best? And leave a comment down below if you want me to cover another TitanX altcoin gem.